Welcome to the Cloud Safe Backup webinar. My name is Chris and I will be your operator for today's webinar. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session. I would now like to turn the call over to Mr. Joe Lyden from Evolving Solutions. Joe, you may begin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you making time to join us today. Again, my name is Joe Lyden. I'm a Cloud Sales Specialist here at Evolving Solutions. With me today, I have James Keating, who's our Business Technology Architect Team Lead, and he'll be doing the second half of the presentation. So just a little bit of housekeeping, as they mentioned at the top of the hour. We've got everybody in listen-only mode. We certainly do encourage questions, so there is an opportunity to send those in the chat session, and we've got Amber Murphy from our marketing group here that is looking at those as they come in. And at the end, we'll open it up to be able to ask questions live over the conference line, as well as we'll go through the questions that came through the chat line as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get things started. Would like to do a little bit of introduction for those of you that are new to Evolving Solutions. We've been in business for 21 years, 75 employees and growing. We have a dedicated cloud team, and that's who you're speaking with today, and just two members of our team. There is a larger team that supports this group, a managed service practice, and a complete hardware and software portfolio. So some folks are more familiar with us with our hardware lines. Some folks are more familiar with us with our cloud practice or managed service. So we do like to let everybody know exactly the depth and breadth of what Evolving Solutions can do for you. And again, today we're really going to focus on our dedicated cloud team. And when I do say dedicated, the folks on our cloud team, like myself and James, we solely focus on cloud-based solutions. Now, oftentimes that involves hardware and software, and you're certainly going to see that as part of this presentation, but just to give you the sense of where we're going, where the industry is going, Evolving Solutions is really looking at cloud as a key component for our clients. So our cloud partners, and the reason why I put this slide up is when I tell people that I work at Evolving Solutions and I work on our cloud team, one of the first questions people ask me is, does Evolving Solutions have its own cloud? What is the Evolving Cloud solution? And the answer is we do not have our own cloud, nor do we white label someone else's cloud. The reason why we do that is with our cloud practice, we have taken on the same methodology that has made us successful for the past 21 years, and that is choosing best-in-breed technologies and representing those and bringing those to our clients in a manner that is consumable for them. So everything from hardware, software, hyperscaler cloud providers such as Amazon Web Services, SoftLayer. What we do is go in and determine what is the best solution to provide to our clients, because not everything is equal to each client. So you'll see on the screen here everything from, as I mentioned, Amazon, SoftLayer, Faction, to software companies like Zerto, Veeam, hardware vendors, Riverbed, NetApp. We'll talk about some of these technologies here today, but really these are the solutions that we use to create cloud-based environments that work for our clients. And another thing to note is what you see here today is more than likely going to look different 12 to 18 months down the road as the business continues to evolve. So, for example, there's a couple technologies that we're currently testing today, and in the next probably 30 to 60 days, you'll see those logos up on here as well. So a little bit more about Evolving Solutions Cloud practice is we really focus around 5 tenets, so to speak. Data services, backup, recovery, disaster recovery, and we're going to focus on backup here today. Assessment services, performance monitoring, security monitoring, migration, integration, and of course managed services as well. So oftentimes when we're working with a client, we're either focused in one or possibly multiple areas, and oftentimes they work in concert with one another. So I'm going to give you a brief little commercial on each of these segments. So I'm going to start with disaster recovery as a service. So disaster recovery as a service is definitely becoming extremely popular in the cloud space. For the few of the bullet points mentioned on the screen here, there's no costly hardware. It is on demand. You're able to use multiple use case scenarios. And actually, here's another interesting point, is you can actually get usage out of your backups. And then if you want to take it to the next step, tap into analytics. So again, at a high level, if you've got your backups out in the cloud, which we're going to talk about today, you can then actually tap into that and use that for analytics, as well as use that as your disaster recovery. So instead of having disaster recovery sitting in your data center in a colo where you're paying top dollar for it, you can have that out in the cloud where it's much more cost effective and really only paying for compute when you use it. So a little bit about our assessment services. This is an actual screenshot from a client that we did a cloud potential study for. So they engaged with us to say, we're interested in cloud. We want to look at how we would do that around backups and what does that look like. So, at a high level, what we did is we looked at infrastructure, process, skill set, and software. And then if you can see the little square boxes with the C in them on the varying timelines, so to speak, that's where you need to be at a minimum for cloud readiness. So, for example, with this client, their backup infrastructure was not ready for prime time when it came to cloud readiness. Their backup process was close. The good news is their backup skill set was already there, and their backup software was very close. So what we were able to do by sitting down with this client and going through very detailed what their architecture, what their infrastructure was, what their goals were, we were able to put this piece together and then drive into the next page, which you'll see, and put together a level of risk from a business impact analysis on the left axis, and then on the bottom axis, an investment over time and money. And without getting into too much detail, what we're able to do is clearly point out where they have challenges, where they have risks, and then show them where we could bring their business to. So these are just 2 pages of an 8 to 10 page write-up that comes with any of our impact analysis assessments and really gets into a granular level of what's going on in your environment and what we propose going forward. The next piece is performance and security monitoring. And there's a couple of screenshots that you can see here and a couple that are cut off. And this is one particular tool that we use called Galileo. But if you could see, if I could scroll through this and it wasn't a screenshot, you would see that there are a number of different pieces of the business that it looks into. This goes well beyond simple up-down monitoring. This gets into really looking at the performance and security of what's going on in your environment. And let's face it, when you're utilizing a pay-as-you-go, you want to make sure that you're getting the performance, you're seeing what's going on in your environment when it gets into cloud, whether that's a private cloud, a hybrid cloud, you're getting into public cloud, to be able to see what's going on. And a key piece of that is security. So you're actually ensuring that the right people are looking at it, have access to it, and really bringing that security back to where it belongs, and that's with the IT organization. So migration and integration service is another big piece of our cloud practice. Cloud is very nebulous in itself in general, but when you get down to the specifics of how do I get from on-prem to a hybrid cloud or move something out to a public cloud, that's where it gets very specific. And we have the expertise to sit down with you to look at what does your infrastructure look like today, what is the design that you feel is best suited for you, and we come up with a proposed solution together, and then how can we get that data to where it needs to be? Because cloud is all about agility and flexibility. So we want, and James will mention this in his piece, is we want to build on-ramps for you. We don't want you and your data to be in a one-way mousetrap. We want it to be accessible, flexible, and that's really what cloud is being able to bring to your infrastructure. So the other piece that I wanted to talk to you about was managed service. So again, simple up-down when it comes to your systems, frontline support for ticketing, issue resolution, after-hours support, and the two last pieces are probably the most intriguing to our clients and where they find the most value are the quarterly health check and reports and then testing of disaster recovery. So what we're able to do with anything that we do around a managed service, and again, we don't have one-size-fits-all, package A, B, or C. We really look at what piece of your business do you want us to manage. Everything from I want you to simply manage my backups to I want you to manage my entire infrastructure. We sit down with you and detail out what your objectives are, what you want us to cover, and put that package together for you, because everybody's environment is different, everybody's skill sets and needs are different, so we put that together for you. And then the last one, as I mentioned, testing of disaster recovery. We're experts at this. We'll write a run book, put it together for you, and actually run it side by side with you so that you are comfortable and know how to do it, but we're always there to work with you in case you need us to work on that. So now, a couple last slides before I turn it over to James. How important is your data? We're talking about backups, and this is really your security. And these are some numbers that we pulled from Gartner. We just updated these. We like to update these every couple of months, but it just shows you what you're looking at. 93% of companies that lost data centers for 10 or more days filed for bankruptcy within a year. 60% of businesses do not have a fully documented and tested recovery plan. 23% of companies have never tested a disaster recovery. 40% believe that their data recovery plan they have is not adequate. And then obviously the big number is 50,000 to 5 million, which is a very big range, but loss of reported per company due to a data loss instance. So simply put, data is the lifeblood of your company. It's arguably the most important piece of your company, other than probably the employees. Of course, the IT employees being the most important. So disaster recovery and backups are like diet and exercise. Everybody knows that they should do them. They're not very high priority until it's too late, because generally people think, I'm okay, I'm covered, or I'll deal with that next week. I'm working on this current issue. And it's something that is easy to do, and we're here to help you with it, and we can do it in a very cost-effective way by leveraging cloud. So we want to bring it to the forefront of your thoughts and not have it as a back burner item. So I believe this is my last slide, and we always like to have a fun picture in our presentations. Misconceptions about cloud storage. My data will be stuck in the cloud. I won't be able to restore in a timely manner. My data will be less secure. The reason why these are out here is there have been people that either have architected incorrectly, have put something together that didn't work well, and they ran into a problem. So how can you, as IT experts, avoid these potential pitfalls and others that you may have run into yourself or heard of others in the industry running into, whether they're myths, urban legends, or truths? How can you avoid that? And the simple way to do that is you need to vet everything as we do, vet all cloud technologies, whether that's the hyperscalers themselves, the software and hardware that you're using to migrate data to cloud, whether that's public, private, or hybrid. You then need to test your architecture and really look at it from end to end to make sure it meets and exceeds your needs. So if you're able to do all of that, then you're successfully able to leverage cloud. What's the easiest way to do that is to work with experts like Evolving Solutions who have already tested all of these scenarios, or if there's a new scenario that we need to test on your behalf, we have the infrastructure and setup to do that to ensure that when we design this and put it in place, that it's going to work for you. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to James Keating, and he can introduce himself and take it from here.
Hello, yes. I'm James Keating, and been at Evolving Solutions now for 2 years. And before that, I was the senior manager at a medical device manufacturer, St. Jude Medical. I was in charge of all of the data centers, all the backups, and all of the Unix systems and disaster recovery, primarily for SAP. So that's why a lot of people will ask me, why cloud? Well, one of the biggest things that you do as a data center manager for a large company like that is there's a lot of data center consolidations and application and data placement choices that have to happen. And so cloud is naturally one of those things that you start looking at, especially when you have, I think 50, 60 data centers all across the globe. So you have to look at where does the data go and how that stuff goes. So that's how cloud, the transition for me into cloud, was because of that background. So I like to kind of go through how do we approach the cloud, and then how do we approach backups in the cloud from Evolving Solutions point of view. So basically, I'm going to go through the two columns that say cloud principles and data principles, because those apply to everything we do with the cloud. So basically, anything that we're going to talk about and solutions we will recommend to customers, they're going to be a tested solution. We have a team of dedicated people who are out there basically finding the operational gaps, how it scales, what the implementation gotchas will be, and so we will know that ahead of time. So we will only come to the foreground with things that we've tested. And so that's why, as Joe mentioned, that slide where we have a picture of logos, those logos may change as we find new things and test different things. The other thing is it has to, because cloud, IT in general moves very, very fast, but because cloud is moving faster in a lot of ways than just general IT, one of the things that we like to look at is it has to provide more than one use case for you, because if the cloud piece that you're buying doesn't provide more than one use case, often what happens is it becomes difficult to get people to accept it or to use it, and then you can end up buying shelfware, and that's the worst possible thing for your money investment for the business, is to buy something that you don't use. The other thing we like to look at is making sure that we provide value for both small and enterprise uses, and what that really tells you is, will this software scale? Will this cloud provider scale? Will this architecture work? So we look at it, will it work for the person with one server? Will it work for the person with acres and acres and acres of servers that they have? Or they have got 50 megs of backup data all the way up to several terabytes of data, or petabytes even. So we look at that, how that goes. Our data principles, we call it SAFE, hence the name Safe Cloud Backup. We want to make sure that's your data, because data really is what IT is all about. No matter what part of IT you're in, really what it is you're about managing and working with the data and access to the data. So your data needs to be secure, it needs to be accessible and available, and however we're dealing with the data, it needs to be foundational. So in other words, if you start using cloud technologies, they can't be disruptive to what the processes and things that your business is already doing. They need to be foundational, otherwise they won't be implemented all the way through. So cloud, as I say, cloud is transformative, not disruptive if done properly. And it needs to be efficient. It needs to meet the use cases and the price points that you're looking for, give you more agility, give you things that you're looking for that you couldn't do without having gone to a cloud solution. So when we look at this, we also look at our backup principles. So we always architect backups for what they're for. We don't look at, we look at making sure that they're for restore, because that's what's the purpose of a backup. It's to be able to get the data back. I sometimes run into people who are looking at meeting backup windows as the primary goal, but then that often means restore times, or the data itself can't be restored. And what good is a backup if you can't actually read the data back? Also, minimization of human intervention, because the more times it's touched by human hands, humans are prone to making mistakes, and that just is risk. If you have it more automated, that means it's going to get done in a consistent manner, and it's going to always be there. And when it comes to backups, that's really what you want. You want it to almost be the Ron Popeil, set it and forget it, let it go, and make sure it's there. We also want to make sure we look at operational and archival requirements, because I separate backup data into two categories. One is operational. That's stuff you're most likely going to be restoring from. And archival, that's stuff that you need to keep for a legal reason. Having come from medical device, you have to keep things for average human lifespan plus 10 years, so basically we kept everything forever. But will we ever need to read that data? Most likely not. But we have to be able to show we still have the data and it hasn't been destroyed. So that's an archive. Whereas operational data, that's the stuff that just 30, 60, 90 days, whatever your business requirements are. If you were to have a problem and need to get data back, you're going to be restoring from that. And the requirements for both of those are so different, you need to plan out how I meet both operational requirements and archival requirements in order to get a successful full spectrum backup. Also, you need to look at process integration. So a lot of people already have spent lots of time and money on building backup processes with software that they already have. Examples I see a lot of times is large net backup investments, large TSM investments, and pulling that out is going to be very disruptive and may not be in the best interest of the overall business. So we look at finding things that will fit in with the process you already have without causing disruption, but give you more of the backup success that you're looking for into the cloud. So how do we integrate backups with cloud services? Well, really, there are a few ways that we've looked at, and this slide kind of goes through them. And the easiest way, if for people who are open to it, is managed services. And so that you basically just get a managed service, but not all managed services are created equal, so you need to look at the terms and conditions and make sure you know what you're buying. But that's one way you can integrate in. That comes as a package solution. We do that. If you have questions on that later on, you can talk to Joe about that. We can do that. The next one is something called the direct connection, and we've tested a lot of these direct connections. What these are things like in your backup software, it has an extra add-on that's going to write to a certain cloud vendor, or it's software that can write to a cloud bucket somehow. The problem with these are not all of these meet operational restore requirements because of the way they're currently architected. This may not be the case in a few months to even, or a year. So we're constantly looking at these and testing. Right now we're in deep testing with Commvault's actual connection out to Amazon S3, and that one keeps changing how they're doing it. And so I think that one may be something we'll talk about on some of these events going forward as an option, direct connection. The next one that I see a lot of people trying to do is what I call the API shuffle. And what this is that's when management says, I got a lot of smart guys. They should be able to figure out how to write stuff to cloud. The cloud providers provide an API, so I should be able to use that to write the data out there. And so they get a bunch of guys in a room and say, okay, go out there and make this happen. And those guys will doing what all good geeks will do. They will make it work. They will find a way to write a script or whatever that uses APIs and sends the data out. It will be lovingly handcrafted, and it will work beautifully until something changes. The first time there's a change, it will break, and if those guys leave, you're going to have problems. So API Shuffle is one of those ones where, will it work? Yes. Is it a long-term solution that can scale? Probably not. So the one we tend to like to look at a lot is something called the Cloud Gateway or Integrated Cloud Storage. And what this really is a device that sits in your infrastructure that handles the APIs for you and sends the data out to the cloud, but it also acts as a repository for operational backups. So that way you can do restores quickly at disk speed if you need to on-prem without having to read data back. And one of those from the cloud. The reason we like to look at that is we practice a truth in pricing model, and most cloud providers, the price that they quote you out there for bringing stuff to the cloud is a certain price, but actually reading the data back is an extra cost. So we always like to work with our customers on how much restores are you going to be doing, how much of the time we have to worry about that, what are the caveats around archive and that kind of stuff, so we will look at that stuff with you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to two of the cloud gateways that we use a lot. As Joe mentioned, we're testing these things all the time. If this were to happen in Q1 of next year, one of these events, there'll likely be a third cloud gateway we will be discussing. Right now, we're 90% through all of our rigorous testing of that, and it probably will be added onto our stuff in the near future. So what is Cloud Gateway Integrated Storage? Basically, as I said, it's a physical or virtual system that provides a systematic connection out to cloud-based object storage. And what is it? It's really, think of it as a funnel to get your data to the cloud in a way that makes sense. Why we like them is because they provide that operational storage landing place, so that way you're not going to impact your backup window for being able to write backups. You can write backups quickly, that you can do restores quickly, and you know where your data is because they have the ability to tell you where your data is. So today I'm going to go through both the NetApp AltaVault and the Amazon Storage Gateway because both of those fit into our Safe Cloud backup principles. So we kind of went through this a little bit, but the local copy of data is very important, and that's the reason why at this point I'm not recommending the direct connections because They don't always provide you a good way to have a local copy of data, or if something were to happen to your network for whatever reason, your backups may fail. And again, backups failing is not something you want to have happen, and I can go through a lot of examples of where I've had backups fail for weeks on end with people not noticing, even when they had proper monitoring in place, because the backups reporting that they were completing, but they weren't actually writing the right data out, and that's a risk with not having a local place to land the data. One of the other things that some of these gateways can do, specifically the AltaVault, it can actually create WAN acceleration for you, and I'll go into what that means later on. Also, they can increase your performance of your backups because they are disk-based in your local infrastructure, so that way you can do backups at disk speed. So you're basically getting rid of all of the tape, all of the man hours required to do scanning barcodes, waiting for trucks to show up, and all that risk and all that noise. So let's go through a couple use cases. The first use case is the Amazon Storage Gateway, and this is just a simple case of this. What is the Amazon Storage Gateway? It's a virtual appliance that sits on any, basically you have to have VMware, but sitting in VMware on-prem. You give it whatever storage you want as long as it's iSCSI. It has to read iSCSI. And then what it does is it's a funnel. Any data that lands on it will actually move out to Amazon S3 storage, which is 3 cents a gig a month for data. Now, you can set up the Amazon Storage Gateway in two different manners, and those is the fancy terms here that they give you, the gateway cached volume or the gateway stored volume. But really when you break it down, one is a cache, which means if it fills up, it's going to overwrite the oldest data on the local cache. Now, everything's going to go out to the cloud no matter what, but your local cache is what you're going to restore from if you have unless something really, that whole building's gone and doing a DR. But most of your operational stores will come from the cache. A gateway stored volume really is a mirror. So what it does is 100% of what's in the cloud is 100% of what's on your local copy, so that way you don't have to worry about all the data just aged off of my cache, and I'm going to have to pull it back from the cloud if you were to do a restore. We see reasons why you would want to do either one. We actually have several customers running the cached model at this point, and if you're running the mirrored. The cached model makes sense if you're a smaller place and don't want to provide a lot of on-prem storage for the gateway to use. So I like to go through what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly of any technology that we look at. And so the gateway, the Amazon Storage Gateway, is very, very inexpensive to run. That's $125 a month per gateway. There are some caveats on how big each gateway can be, and if you go out to Amazon and look, what they tell you is way larger than we would ever recommend. And we've tested it, and I can go through. It depends on the size of your VMware. It depends on the speed of your disk that you have, and it depends on what backup product you're using. So if you're using Backup Exec, it may be different than if you're using NetBackup or if you're using TSM. So mileage will vary depending on that. So we like to look at that. It can use any disk that you have on-prem. It does not matter. As long as you have VMware and ability to connect to the disk iSCSI, the gateway where you can feed it any disk you want. And it is extremely easy to integrate into your current backup process. It's really just the CIFS or NFS target that you would write to. As I said, it has a limited max size. So the way around that is you get more than one, but that means management challenges. You're going to have more than one gateway and figure out which backups go to which gateway. And it only has the two options for how the data moves. It's either that cached volume or it's the mirrored volume. So that's a limitation. And these are the two big ones, the ugly, the ones that I don't, is basically there's no built-in encryption and there's no built-in deduplication. So what we recommend if you're going to use the Amazon Storage Gateway is make sure that the backup product you're using can do encryption, because that is, we would never recommend sending data out anywhere, whether it's even to tape that's not encrypted. So basically, make sure your backup product can do encryption, and if you can do deduplication, that will help as well. And it does have, it can only write to Amazon S3 because it is an Amazon product. So you do some vendor lock in there. So use case 2, the NetApp AltaVault. The NetApp AltaVault, what it really is it's very similar to the Amazon Storage Gateway. The difference is it can be physical or virtual, and it can use anybody's object-based storage to write to. So that can be any object store, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in the hyperscale cloud providers, or if it's at a colo. A lot of colo providers will have some of their own disk that they can share out as object store. So it does not matter. As long as it's object storage, it can go to it. And it, like I said, it's both physical or virtual, so it's highly scalable, and it can meet a lot of different needs. It also has a lot of other features. So basically, because it is a product that we've worked with AltaVault since a long time ago, started as a Riverbed product. It was called Whitewater, and then it became Steel Store, and now it's the AltaVault. So it has built-in WAN acceleration built into it, so it will accelerate data as it moves to the cloud, any object store. You can get the AltaVault running, and we've done this on a couple occasions. Now, they say in under 30 minutes, and we've done that in 29 minutes. I would say plan for an hour, just to be safe, but you can get it done. And that's with the virtuals. It's very efficient. It does global deduplication, and it encrypts everything that it goes, and it integrates with all backup solutions, and that can write to CIFS or NFS, and it will write to any object store. It does not matter which object store. So you could write to SoftLayer, you could write to Amazon, you could write to Azure. It does not matter. As long as it's an object store, it will write. And again, it has the security. And one of the things that it does is it encrypts everything before it sends it out there, and then it speeds it up as it goes with the WAN acceleration technology. So here's one of the things that they tell you. 30 minutes to get started, 90% reduction in cost. That's basically because of the deduplication and the removal of tape labor. And you can use 20 different cloud providers that it's been tested with, but we've tested it with lots of different kinds of object storage. As long as it's object storage that can understand Swift, it works. You can do, they're basically comparing to tape backups here, so realistically you can do restores in 30 times the speed because it's on disk. It's a disk-based storage. So how does it work? What can I get? How can I get it? Well, you can get it in a couple different flavors. You can get the cloud-based appliances only, and what those are really for is if you want to turn your backups into potential to have them become disaster recovery for you out of the cloud, you can get cloud-based appliances. So once you've got your data sitting out in the cloud, if you needed to run at the cloud and restore that data, you can spin up at AWS or Azure cloud versions of the AltaVault and be able to restore your data into the cloud. You have virtual appliances, and they come in a couple different sizes, and those just run on your VMware. You give it whatever disk you want to give it in the VMware. It does not matter as long as it gets a disk through the VM. And they come in different sizes. And then there's the physical appliances. It comes in 2 physical appliance sizes, and there's a new one coming out on Q1 next year that is going to be the AVA 880. That one will be bigger. And so if you look at it, the really key thing to look at here on these is basically the maximum amount of cloud capacity supported, which is in the middle of the slide there, and the backup throughput. Because when you size these things, you really need to look at how much drink-in speed. How much data can the thing ingest to be able to meet my backup windows? And so a lot of the times people will go with the physical because they need that higher drink-in speed. The other thing we've been finding is pricing-wise right now, if you are at a point of disk refresh for backups, sometimes the physical can be a better deal because you can get a certain amount of storage included with it without having, and the price can be very, very attractive if you wanted to get a certain amount of disk. And actually the last few that we've done have actually been the physicals because they were at a time where I needed to get more disk for my backup stuff and I want to be able to write that out to cloud. It was perfect timing for being able to get a physical device. So it's got a lot of features and functionality to it. And so basically this is showing a Veeam example, which we actually do quite a bit with. Veeam writes to the AltaVault writes out to AWS or Azure or SoftLayer, whoever you want, and that's how that works. I'm going to go into some of the screenshots of the AltaVault itself because it does have a lot of features. It can do WAN acceleration, it's got a lot of reporting, it's got a lot of things that the storage gateway is not going to give you. So here's an example of what you're going to see in the AltaVault if you were to get into it. It's a very simple interface to use. It's going to tell you, okay, here's how much disk I have, here's my cloud. You can look at when was the last time you were fully synced with the cloud. You can look at details around replication times to the cloud. It'll tell you which you're using on the back end, and it will tell you if you're not in sync, its estimated time for being in sync. The other nice thing with these is you can replicate between them. So let's say you decide to have two AltaVaults, one in Data Center 1, one in Data Center 2, and have all of your backup data going out to Amazon. You can write backups to both of them that replicate to each other, and what they will do for syncing to the cloud is they will pick whichever pipe each data center is the least busy as the one that it will send the data out on. So it has a lot of that optimization built in. You can also tell it I only want to replicate from noon to 3 at 1% of my pipe, from midnight till 3 a.m. I want to be able to go as fast as it'll go, take as much of the pipe as I can get. You can do those kind of settings and stuff. Here's a report on optimization replication for one of our actual customers. It tells basically where we're at to full sync, and how you can see when the backup hits and when it's going. And it tells me that it's healthy and green, big green thing, and it does a lot of alerting and reporting. So the most common question we get when we start talking about backups to the cloud is, I don't think I can do that because I don't know if my network is big enough. So I'm going to go through some sizing examples with the AltaVault, and if you need to look at your environment specifically and want to look at an AltaVault, feel free to talk to us. I have sizing tools. We can go through it, and a lot of it does depend on these things. You got to know the size of your full backup set, the size of your incremental backup set, the software that you're using to back it up, your WAN speed, and then your retentions make a big difference. Because there's a concept of how much of pinning, how much do I want to keep on the local disk, how much do I want to keep offsite, and all that kind of stuff. And then an estimate of growth, and then we need to know the backup window that we're targeting for. So once you know these things, we can go through it. So this example one here is an actual end user that we have. It's a small manufacturer. They have 7 terabytes of actual backup. They have about 2 terabytes of incremental backup, and they're using TSM. And their pipe is 100 megabits per second. So if you look at it, you go to the bottom there, and it tells us that, basically it's going to take 3 days to reach full speed to maintain their backup window. Because what the sizing is assuming is that I want to make sure that I'm fully synced at the end of any backup window with the cloud. So it's telling me a problem here. If you look at the bottom, it's saying I need to have I need to use 200 megabits of my 100 megabit pipe. Uh-oh. Does that mean I can't actually get an AltaVault? No. What it means is that if we look down at the bottom, it says the bandwidth needed to maintain sync post-seeding it is only 4.8 megabits of my 100 megabit pipe. So basically, once you get fully seeded to the cloud, you'll be able to use this fine. So what it means is you won't be able to seed it in that 48-hour window that it has in the back there. So with this client, we work with them and determine how to do this. We did over a certain amount of time throttling it. We did over a couple weeks and got them out there where we moved certain backups. Like we moved backup set 1, backup set 2, backup set 3 over time, and got them slowly 8 chunks of their backup to get out until they're fully in sync and go. One of the things that you can get around this now is if you're using Amazon on the back end, they have something called the snowball, which is actually you can do fast seeding of stuff at Amazon. If you have questions on Snowball, feel free to talk to us. It's a very new offering from Amazon, and we're testing it right now, but it's one of the things that is out there, and we can go through it with you. So let's go to example number 2. These people here had a much bigger pipe, and if you look at it, the days to reach full cloud seed was 4 days if we only used half their pipe. They didn't want to do that much, so what we did is we actually planned it out again to ate the amount of data over a certain amount of time, and figured out what was the best thing for them. But the key thing again is always looking at that: how much of my bandwidth am I going to use once I get fully seeded out there? That is the really determining factor on whether or not the AltaVault will meet your needs. And this is a real example, and I'm not going to read all the details of it, but you can take a look at it and see that basically, we can send 15 terabytes of data, and there's 5 terabytes of data every increment, and they're using that backup. What we found is that the net backup exec, and Veeam tend to seed better than TSM. TSM takes a little longer, and some of the other ones like CrashPlan, if people are using CrashPlan, you can use that with the AltaVault. It takes a little bit longer to seed as well because of the way it writes the data to the AltaVault. This is a third example. This is what I would call very small business. This is an actual customer of ours. We do full managed backups for them. They're a city. I have a better internet pipe in my house. They have a very tiny pipe, but they don't have very much data, and they're using Veeam. And so for them, they're going to use 3 megabits of their little pipe to keep fully in sync. This is the customer I was referring to that's using the cached model. The reason why they're using the cached model is they're using a USB drive local for their that they're feeding to the AltaVault basically. So they're not what I would call the pinnacle of performance, but it meets their needs and it works really, really well for them. And they're going to use it use their backups at AWS for disaster recovery by spinning up Veeam servers out there and an AltaVault and restoring if they needed to, so they can get away with not having to pay for compute at the disaster recovery site. They can actually pay for the backups and the storage at 3 cents a gig plus the AltaVault to be able to do that, and it's a very cost-effective way for them to have disaster recovery, and it meets their RTOs and their RPOs, which are longer, like 48 hours, 50 hours type RTOs. So let's go through the facts on the AltaVault. If you look at it, it has full control of what you have on site. Because you can, as I said, you can pin stuff. You can decide I want to keep certain golden backup images always on the local disk, so that way the SAP team's doing an upgrade next week, but they want to make sure that they have a rollback set there so they can go fast if something goes wrong. You have full control over how much your pipe is used for replication, when and how. You can be both physical and virtual, and you can use any public or private object-based storage. It does not matter. It's not as inexpensive as the AWS Gateway. List price on these things is, for the virtuals, is going to be starting in the $40,000 range, I believe, is list. Nobody pays list, and if you want to know real pricing, you need to talk to Joe. But that's kind of the way it works. So the range is going to be anywhere from $40,000 list to $200,000 list, depending if you're getting the big physical. But nobody pays list. The ugly with it, really, the AltaVault right now is our go-to one. It has all of the features that you're looking for, and doesn't have any of the vendor lock-in that we don't like. So the AltaVault's a good one right now. As I mentioned, there's going to be a third one coming that is similar to the AltaVault. It's not going to have as many features as the AltaVault, but it's going to be in a lower price point, probably in the $5,000 to $10,000 price range when you compare it. So how do I know which is good for my environment? Well, this is what we kind of like to look at. Are you virtual? Then you can use either one. But if you want it to be physical, then the AltaVault's really your only choice at this point, based on the ones that we've tested and the ones that we know will work. If you need encryption built in, then basically the AltaVault's the way to go. Deduplication is also built in with the AltaVault, and it works with any object-based storage. And they're both easy to implement. So how do we get around some of the issues with the storage gateway? Well, we make sure you're using backup software that can encrypt and can do deduplication, and we make sure that we're setting up your environment size the right way so you know what you're getting and how to do the management. One of the things with the Amazon Storage Gateway, we often will do, as Joe showed earlier, a screenshot of monitoring. Most of the time we'll package the Amazon Storage Gateway with a monitoring product, because the Storage Gateway doesn't give you a lot of ability to see what's going on. But if we were to use Galileo with the Amazon Storage Gateway, you can actually see what's going on. And that's really important when you're going to cloud. You need to be able to know, if you're paying for what you use, you need to know really what you're using and have good baselines. So both of these follow the safe backup principles when implemented following best practices by making sure you know how you're going to get what backup products you're going to use. So in summary, we make sure that we want to follow the good backup and safe principles that we have. So make sure that we're secure, that encryption and reporting of backup data, where your backup data is located, is important. We need to know that we have a local copy of certain amounts of data so we can speed restores for operational requirements. It needs to fit into your infrastructure. So that means it needs to fit into your VMware environment, or it needs to fit into your backup environment. So as long as your backup software can write CIFS or NFS into a share, they will work. And we like these because they take advantage of what everybody's talking about when it comes to cloud, and that is the inexpensive storage. You'll hear 3 cents a gig a month. That is true for writing data out to Amazon. And you can read half of your data back in any 1 month, and that still stays that price. And so we'll work with people to make sure that we actually get you, so if you're reading data back from Amazon every day, it may not be 3 cents a gig a month, it may be 6 cents a gig a month. But still, if you look at that price point, that's a very compelling reason to look at moving your backups to the cloud. The other thing is you no longer have tape management or any of those risks with it. It's more of an automatic system. As the data lands, you don't have to wait for vaulting to happen, for the truck to show up, for the tapes to be put in cases and be sent off to be stored securely. As soon as the data is backed up, it's sent out to the cloud. You don't have to worry about knowing where the data is either, and is the tape going to work when I get it back. If it's showing up in your backup, it's out at the cloud and it's on the local storage, depending on how your local storage is set up. So whatever is inside of your backup product, you can tell that data you do have, so it helps auditing purposes as well. So I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out in the middle of the day to go through some stuff of cloud backups, which is something that's very exciting for me. So I'd like to open it up at this point to Joe and let the questions and stuff.
Yeah, we'll open up for questions in 1 minute. One thing that I wanted to mention is we obviously highlighted two technologies today for our cloud-safe backup solution, one using Amazon Web Services AWS Gateway out to Amazon Storage, and the other was the NetApp AltaVault, whether it's a virtual or physical, and that can go to any number of different cloud providers. What I would like to offer to anyone on our call today is if you would like for us to set up a proof of concept for either of these, we're able to do that for you, and it's simple and easy to do. So, for example, obviously the Amazon Gateway, that is virtual. When it comes to the NetApp, we would do the virtual option, not the physical, and set that up either to an existing cloud provider that you have today, or we can create an Amazon AWS S3 bucket for you and actually do a free 30-day trial for you and show you how it works. So, as you see on the screen now, use your backup software using your data, simple and fast to set up. We can do it in less than an hour, and we can take care of that for you. So. Please do think about that, and the other thing that I'll mention is once we are complete with today's call, what we'll do is take this deck and put it out onto our website, and I'll be sending out a thank you for attending with the link in case you'd like to see this information at a later date. So back to our call coordinator, if you could open up the line at this time and see if there are any questions for us.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you have a question, please press star, then 1 on your touch-tone phone. If you wish to be removed from the queue, please press the pound sign or the hash key. There will be a delay before the first question is announced. If you are using a speakerphone, you may need to pick up the handset first before pressing the numbers. Once again, if you have a question, please press star, then 1 on your touch-tone phone. Standing by for questions.
We do have one question here. They ask, does this work with an IBM I server?
The answer to that is not easily. The issue is the IBM I servers require writing to a VTL type device. We can actually solve that problem with a different cloud gateway that I don't have on here. The reason why I don't put it in our Safe Cloud Backup stuff is because it really only meets one use case, which is IBM I. So if you want to discuss that use case, you can contact us and we can go through it. We have the ability, so basically we can do exactly what I showed you here without one of these two gateways for you for IBM I. It just won't be the AltaVault or the AWS storage gateway.
But good question. Thank you. Any other questions from folks on the line?
No, sir. It doesn't look like there are any questions at this time.
Okay. Well, again, we'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join. We will be having a monthly seminar series, so this is the one obviously for October. Be on the lookout for the invite for the one next month, and we'll have a new topic, and we're always looking for new information and new topics to cover for people as well. So thanks again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.